Okay, hello everyone. I guess we can start. So thank you for coming to my presentation about board games. But before I start, I need to make a short disclaimer. The presentation is going to be in English, but some of the slides will be multilingual in other languages. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. So the first thing you have to know about me is that I'm not a board game geek, right? I'm a professional teacher. I own a language school. And I use board games in teaching, and I use board games to learn the languages. So, as a professional teacher, I would like to do the first thing. I would like to do the short test. So, I want you to think of board games that you know. Just make a list, or think of how many. Can you think of 5 board games, 10 board games, 20 board games? I mean just the names. But chess and checkers are not, well, I don't consider them, don't include them into this list. So, how many board games, who knows less than 5 board games? Raise your hands. Okay, who knows more than 10 board games? Oh, who knows more than 20 board games? Oh, we have board game geeks here. Okay, good. So according to the website Board Game Geek, there are approximately 10,000 board games. Yeah. So we can use this number so we have a selection of games to choose which we can use in teaching. So the first part of presentation will be about learning languages using the board games. So I'm gonna prove you that board games are better than books for learning a language. So now I have 10 reasons to prove that board games are better. Who agrees that board games are better than books for learning? Yeah, I knew there are board game geeks here anyway. So let's go. So reason number one. The board games look better. Yeah. So yeah, we have nice books, of course. We have nice books, but let's look at this. Is it a modern board game? Do we consider this a modern board game? I think everyone has played this game, right? Yeah. This is not a modern board game, and actually in a board game community, Monopoly is a taboo, right? So when you say, it's a strange question to ask a board gamer, do you play Monopoly? So there are other modern games. So one of these games is Sagrada. This is a game about building stained glass. Yeah. The other game is photosynthesis. It's a game about growing trees, about the sun, the position of the sun, and how the sun influences the growing of the plants. It's considered one of the most beautiful games. This one, sorry, you may thought that I chose the wrong slide, right? I was hungry and no, this is a game. This is a game. Never played this one, would like to own it, but this is how the game looks like. The next reason is board games are cheaper than books. Yeah, so you can buy a board game for at least $10–15. Yeah, sometimes under $10. This is approximately the price of a usual book. Yeah. The other thing is that you can resell the books. You can resell the board games easier. Yeah. Sometimes they don't make as many books. Yeah. They don't make as many board games. Sorry, and so the print of the board games is limited, and you can easily resell them. Another thing that there are Kickstarter games which are very limited. You can buy them for $100 and then resell them for $400 on eBay because they're very exclusive. Yeah, some people do this. Okay. The other thing is print and play games. So these are the games that you can download from the internet. They're free. You can print them, you can laminate them, cut and play. I actually use quite a lot of them, yeah, and they are free. So in this case, board games are cheaper than buying books. Reason number 3. Board game is a better present than a book. If you need a translation of this slide, you can tell me, because this one is in Ukrainian. Yeah, you need. So this is a present from a young boy, and this is a present from a smart boy, from a smart guy. Yeah. Okay. I always get books as presents, and when people think of the present, they think like, oh, let's buy a book. Yeah. Board games are better because you have a choice, and there is such a thing as family board games. What are the family board games? These are the games that everybody can play. You have a family, you have a small kid, you can play with your kid, and it's both interesting for you and it's interesting for your kid. So in this case, board games are better presents. Reason number 4. This is reusability or replayability. Yeah. So how long does it take you to read a book? Probably 20 hours, maybe it depends, of course, on the book, right? So the hours are limited, yeah? And how many times do you reread the same book? There are limited books that you can reread. Actually, in my life, I have only read maybe 2 or 3 books. With the board games, it's different. Because the more you play, the more you enjoy the game. The more you learn the rules better, and you understand the game. So in this case, it's again cheaper because you buy a board game and it lasts longer than a book. It lasts hours. And then you can resell or give it as a present. Yeah. And do you need a translation for this? It's in Russian. Well, it says it's a simple miniature. It only goes to work and back. This is what it does. Okay. The next reason number 5. Gateway games. So not so many people like to play. Not so many people like to read. Yeah. It's very difficult to force a person to read. Yeah, I know I'm a teacher, and it's very difficult to force. Like you have to read, and usually the kids don't like to read, and most of the adults too. But everybody likes to play. So board games are much better gateways to the hobby. Yeah. So how many of you? When you travel, for example, how many of you take a book with you when you travel? Raise your hand. Yeah, I forgot. You're geeks. Yeah. Okay. How many of you have some game on your phone? Again, you're geeks. I know. Okay. I should have known. Okay. I was expecting a different answer. Okay. Good. When you play a game, people usually enjoy playing games, yeah, any games. And when you first play a game, any game, you have a wish to go to read it more. That feeling when you haven't played board games for a week. I know that feeling. Okay. Good. Reason number 6. The components. Okay, so why don't we like ebooks, right? Electronic books. Why don't we like them? We don't like them because we cannot touch them, right? So usually people prefer paper books. Yeah, And because, well, I prefer paper books because I can touch them, right? I can smell them, yeah? If it's a new book, not an old book, okay. And the same with board games, you not only have cards, yeah? You only have other components. So when you open a box with board games, you have multiple components, yeah? And which you can touch, and if you want, you can smell them too. So first you have different dice. Usually when we say dice, people have a notion that it's a dice with dots, right? D6 dice, right? But you have, as you can see, you have different dice, and different games uses different dice. Actually, they are called custom dice. The other thing, this is the miniatures, actually they're very expensive. The games with the miniatures are very expensive, but they look nice, again, and you can paint them. You can use the paint and paint to your likes. The other components that almost all the books use, these are the tokens or chips, yeah, for voting. There are many of them, actually. So again, it's very pleasant to feel them in the hand. And other components, like this is a game called Cash and Guns, and in this game you have to use a gun. This is not a real gun, of course, a foam gun. I own this game, yeah, and you have to point this gun at other people, yeah, blackmailing them, yeah. Yeah, this is a game with guns. Next reason, number 7. What is different between books and board games is that you can read a book at home, yes? Well, you can discuss it with your buddy or not. You can read a book, finish a book, and write a review and post it on Facebook, yeah? You can share your feelings about the books, about some book. But with board games it's different. You need the community. You need the people to play. And this is what makes the board games perfect for learning languages. You always interact with people. You need people to play games, so you explain them the rules, yeah? You share the feelings, because board games bring a lot of feelings, good feelings or bad feelings, like in this case. Do you like board games? Not really. Not really? Bye. Yeah. Next. Reason number 8, storytelling. Why do we like books? We like books because we read books because of the story. We enjoy the story, we follow that story. The board games also tell us a story. There are games which are heavily based on storytelling. But there are 2 types of board games. The first type is storytelling games. This is, as you play the game, you read a story. You read different cards, you analyze the rules, you learn something. But there are also story-driven games. What do we mean by story-driven games? This is you make your own story, and every story is unique. Yeah? There's one of the most popular story-driven game is Once Upon a Time. It's a card game, very fun to play. Or you may know story dice. When you have dice with pictures, you draw them and then you tell a story. Reason number 9. You would say that, okay, books, you have reading in books, you have a lot of input in books. Yeah, I agree to that books have input. You have to read the book. But you can read the book, but you don't necessarily need to understand it. Well, sometimes I read a book and I have no idea what was it about. Well, with board games it's different, because board games always go with rule books, and you have to read the rule book. And this is different because the rule book is an instructional. You have to follow the instructions. You have to read it, you have to reread it several times. You have to understand every idea in the rule book. Sometimes people consult multiple. If the game is very difficult, people consult the rule books several times. Yeah, and sometimes the rule books are really big because the rules are very complicated. And finally, reason number 10 is Yeah, I told that the book is a story that you follow, but a book is not always a puzzle. Yeah, you just follow the lines and you don't solve anything. Yeah, the book provides you with a solution. For example, if it's a detective story, right? You read it and then you can interpret the book, but with board games it's different because we have, quest rooms, right? So when you enter the room, you have some tasks that you have to solve, right? And you have to find the clue, the answer. You have to find the way out of the room. There are the similar quest rooms. It's simply a box, not this box, and you have a quest there, like in the quest room, that you have to solve that puzzle. Yeah. So, or there is a detective games, and this is also a box. You open the box, you have a crime, you're a detective, you have to solve it. Yeah. So these are the 10 reasons why board games can be or are better for learning a language than books. Then, how do I learn languages using board games? The problem is I don't actually. I don't play them because I'm a very lonely person. I work all day, and I don't have anyone to play with, at least in other languages. Yeah, I play with kids, but they play it. I just host it. So what I do for board games, I go on YouTube, and on YouTube there are many channels that have the content with board games. They review the games, they explain the rules, they have Let's Play, so you can watch how it's played, and it has in different languages. And sometimes, in most languages, the content is just perfect. I really enjoyed it in any language, especially in German. They have so many games. Then, now I would like to talk about the classification of games, the games that we can use, how we classify games, and which games can we use in learning or teaching. First time, the easiest category is word games. So the games that you use, they use words. You may know some of them. Yeah, let me show you. You know Dixit, right? Most people know Dixit, yeah, which is an association game. Okay, I need to show you here. Yeah, Dixit, yeah. Where you think you have a picture, you think of association, yeah. But there are other similar. You know also Scrabble, yeah. Probably know a bit other version of Scrabble, probably this is Boggle, where you also make words, yeah? But there are other games. Mysterium, which is very similar to Dixit, but it's more complicated, yeah? Codenames, it's a very interesting, intelligent association game. Paperback, which I don't own, but would like to own. When I Dream, when you also very similar to Dixit, but you have good and bad guys there. And what is the advantage of these board games, word board games, is that you have words. This is what we need, yeah, and they can be easily adapted for almost any ages. Yeah, you can play Dixit with even kids, 8 years, I guess. Yeah, and the rules are very simple. Usually in these games, the rules are not that complicated. Yeah, but the disadvantage is I think this is the limited number of words that you use. For example, if you're beginning to, so in Dixit, you just give one word association in English. You just need one word. Think of one word. When you played with kids, for example. So these are the word games. Next category is social deduction games or secret role games. So what are these? Simply put, this is a game where you have good and bad guys. Yeah? You don't know who are good guys, you don't know who are bad guys. Yeah? And you have to find who are bad guys. And how you do this? By communicating. So you may know maybe resistance game. You know Mafia. This is one of the first. This is the first social deduction game. But there are very similar games to Mafia and a bit more complicated. Secret Hitler, actually a very fun game. I'll talk about it later. And they use different mechanics which help you to deduce who is the bad guy or who is a good guy. What is the disadvantage of these games is that you have to speak the language quite well. You have to understand because you have a lot of listening. You have to listen what other people are talking. The disadvantage is this is probably the biggest advantage and the biggest disadvantage because you can't play this game with low-level language learners. Yeah. Next is Ameritrash or Eurogames. So these are the heaviest games, the most complicated games which exist in the board game community. So what are these games? They're usually very complicated. I mean, the rules, yeah, you have a lot of components. The rules are at first hard to understand. These are usually the game for geeks. Yeah, I don't use them. I don't use them in my classroom, but they can also be used. Then, now let's talk about how I use board games in teaching. So I own a language school, and I have groups of children different ages from 8 to 15. So the main problem is how to force children or students to speak the language. For example, if their knowledge is limited. So what I do is I make prompts for them, such slides. This is a game called Gold Fever. It's a very simple game where you have a bag and you have stones, and you have to take stones out of this bag. But you cannot have two of a kind because you lose. So when you make an action, when you play the game, you make an action, you have to say something. For example, if you found gold, you have to say this. Then if you lost, you need to say, first I explain this to kids. This is on the screen so they can see it, and I force them to repeat it. The same with other games. Another simple game, you've got crabs, not crabs, okay. So they have, and they do things, and sometimes they don't realize what it means, but by doing, they learn, and in future, for example, they know the phrase, it's mine, so they can use this phrase in other contexts. For example, you took my pen, it's mine, yeah? Another one, the bang game with the dice. So here I show them what the dice mean, and they have to use the phrase. For example, you get, and then blank, you have to say the number of wounds that you get. Yeah. Or sometimes this is saboteur game, and when they play the card, they have to say what they're doing. Yeah? This is for kids age 7 years old. Or the other game, Sleeping Queen, this is the same. I give them, they play the card, they say it. Yeah? Next, another thing that I do is, I don't necessarily use the game, but I use the mechanics of the game. We have such a popular game as Yahtzee. Yahtzee is a very simple game. It's like poker dice game. You have 5 dice, and you have to roll those dice in order to get a combination like 2s, 3s, as many 2s or as many 3s or as many 6s, and you get points. So what I thought, like, I used it for review. Yeah? So sometimes in my class I have to review the words. For example, we have categories like animal, transport, daily routine, adjectives, and other categories. So I give the kids the dice, they roll the dice, yeah? And depending on the dice that they rolled, for example, they have 3 4s, and 4s is adjective, so they can say 3 adjectives. They have to, and these are their points that they earn. Yeah. So there are other games. I don't use it means that I don't use the mechanics. I don't use the game, but I use the game mechanics. Yeah, and try to implement it in the teaching process. The other thing that I do is when we learn some vocabulary, I try to find the game for this vocabulary. For example, when we learn shapes, yeah, I use a simple game, Blink, where you have to match the color and the shape. Yeah. So when they play the card, they have to say color or shape or number. Yeah. So a simple game. unfortunately, it's for 2 people, but they play in teams, so there is a way out. Or when we learn transportation, I found a racing game, a very simple card game where you have to play cards, you're racing, you're playing speed cards, you're playing hazard cards, like take that effect. The other thing, I can change the games to my needs. Yeah, we know the word double or spotted, right? Where you have a card and you have to find the similarities. Yeah, this is the same I did for. I have just a stack for transport. Yeah, so only transport, or only animals, or only clothes, or only irregular verbs. Yeah, so this is a very good way to review the vocabulary. Okay, or we know Uno game, right? So I found the variation of it with the with the ABC, just for the young learners, where they have to have. Everyone played Uno? Okay, so probably haven't played this one. Okay, so this is what they do. They have to match the color. Yeah, it's very simple for older learners. But for older learners, what I changed is when you put, for example, letter S, you have to say the word that starts with letter S. For example, snake. Then the other player puts M, then he has like a different word, or mouse. Or sometimes I just limit. You don't say any words. You only have to say verbs, or you only have to say nouns. Okay. The other thing that, for example, this is when we learn parts of the body. Yeah, there is another game called Virus. Take that game where you play body parts, you play viruses for other people, you play medicines, and again, the children learn how to say, I play medicine card, I play stomach medicine card, I play bone virus card, and they learn this, and they learn these words in process. Yeah. Sometimes, the other aspect that I would like to talk is when there is some holiday, for example, Valentine's Day, yeah, I try to find the game for this holiday, and one of the game is Love Letter. It's a very simple card game where you have to do what's written on the card. Yeah, the card actually has some reading, you read it and you play it. The game suggests love letter because you have to give the love letter to the princess, to the princess, and win the game. Yeah. When there is a Halloween, we play werewolf or some other zombie games. Yeah. When recently there was Victory Day. Yeah, and we played Secret Hitler game. It's a social deduction game, but I played it with older learners. Yeah, so this is how this is what I do for teaching. Sometimes I have to adapt the games. Sometimes I need to change the game a bit, yeah, so that they can understand. I don't always follow the rules because it has to be flexible. Yeah. Okay, so if it's done, I can go for the questions if you have. Hope you have. Okay. Are board games allowed for using in class teaching without breaching the copyright law? If it's print and play game, if it's print and play, it is. Yeah. If it's, you have to, but most games I buy, yeah. It's very difficult actually to find an English version of the games in my country, so I have to buy them from eBay or from Amazon. Okay, this is a nice question. Would you recommend any specific board games for teaching languages? Well, it depends on the level of learner. There is no unique board game that you can use. Perhaps you have. I have one here. It's called Immersion. It's a charade game, and most people. Okay. We actually played this game at the gathering just 2 hours ago. You have transparent cards, and you have 60 of them, and you can show almost anything using these cards. Yeah, you make different shapes. So I think could be almost a unique board game to teach languages. But again, it's limited only to one word. You only show one word. Yeah, so this is a disadvantage, but it's fun. Imagine. No, I don't. You mean this game? No, I don't have the box because the box was very big. You mean this game? Imagine. I don't have the slide. I don't have the box because I put it in the other box. No. Imagine. The game is Imagine. I don't have. I have so many board games that I couldn't physically bring them to the gathering. Okay. So probably Imagine I would recommend. It's a fun game. It's a family game. It's for any languages, any situations. Everybody likes it. You can buy it you can easily buy it at any board game store. Do you think that it's possible to use online games to learn languages? Okay, by online games, do you mean online board games? Okay. Well, I think this is because this is a different topic. I mean video. You mean video games, right? Online games. Yeah, it is. But the problem is, online games can be very addictive, and you can spend too much time, and then you just it has language. Of course, it has a lot of language, but nowadays kids usually overuse the games. I mean, online games. So, of course, this is a separate online games, video games. This is a different topic. They're different. They are different from board games. Yeah, well, you're right. You have to interact with people. That's exactly the reason why books are better for people who have no friends to play with. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I don't read. I don't have time. I don't have energy to read. Yeah, how are you using board games if you have just 60-minute lesson, too little time for instruction, right? Okay, good. That's a good question. No, maybe at the end of the class, I use 10 minutes, for example, to explain the rule of the game. Yeah, the next class, I'm gonna show the game. Then the third class, we may try to play. So we don't use the whole class. I never use the whole class. Only in one case. Kids love games, so I give them a collective task, like go to Duolingo, you have to earn 8,000 points on Duolingo, yeah? Or close master or memorize, yeah? If they do, I track this. If they collectively earn 8,000 points on Duolingo, I organize them a game day, yeah? And they choose a game, and they can play the game for 60 minutes, all class. This is what I do. Do you create the different double variations by yourself, or you can download it, buy it? No, the ones I bought. I'm not very friendly with Photoshop. I think it's easier done, but I'm not. It's easy. I don't have time for that, so I usually buy them online. Could you give examples of websites where you can download board games? Yeah, I can give you a very good for Russian board games where you can download them. Boardgamer.ru board. It's for Russian and also English, Spanish games. I use it quite often, but it's illegal actually. No, I download it, I look at the game, I play it. If I like the game, I buy the game. Yeah. So just for to get to know the game, you can download it. What's your favorite type of board game? The board game. It's difficult to choose one. I like social deduction games, for example, mafia games, where you have a good guy and you have a bad guy. And this is strange, I like to play for bad guys, always. Yeah. Have you tried Coop games? Is it Coop? Yes? Yeah, I forgot about cooperative. Yeah, this is what I forgot to mention. Cooperative games are very good for interaction. A cooperative game is a game you don't play against each other. You play against the game, right? So the game sets you the difficulty, and you have to perform the tasks. The most famous game is Pandemic. I have Flashpoint about fire that you play as a firefighter, and you have to rescue the people. Yeah. Cooperative games are great because usually when people play board games, they think this is person versus person or team versus team. But no, in cooperative game, you work together, and this is very good for teamwork. Okay, next. My experience is that many adults in language courses have problems to understand the instructions. How do you solve this problem? Yeah, before we play the game, I show the students the game. I say we're gonna play it, but before that, I have a Viber group, and there I post a Let's Play video, how the game is played. Or the rules, but the rules are really usually difficult to follow. But they see the game, how the people play the game, for example, in English. Yeah, and they see the Let's Play, the rules are explained there, and they see all the process of the game. So this is how I do. Yeah, but still after that, I still have to explain the rules. Okay, go from the beginning. Have you tried to use cards again? No, I haven't tried to use Cards Against Humanity because I don't have adults. I teach teenagers, so no, I would never use that. No, okay. Because when they could play the game, then they come home and tell their mom and dad what they played, and no way. No. Okay. Board games. I've just meant specific board game. What do you do if some students are not eager to play or they're not just following? I don't have such. Usually, all the students like playing. They prefer playing than reading or learning words or writing dictations. So I don't have really problem with that. Okay, I think I have. Okay. Have you invented any board games by your own? No, because there are plenty of games to choose. Yeah, so you go online, you can buy a book, you can buy any board game to your likes. So not yet. Well, I would like to someday, but no. I think I looked through all the questions. Okay, if you have any other questions, okay.
How many students do you have in class?
6 to 8, yeah. So when I have 8 students, I usually don't play, yeah. But when I have, for example, only 4 students come, yeah, I say, okay, let's play some game because we have four students, then we can play. So I don't have large groups. I don't 8 maximum, usually 5, 6. This is the usual number. So I don't have the problem with the number of students.
How old are they?
8 to 15, from 8 to 15, not younger and not older in this age group. Yeah.
Question. I can easily see how the word games can serve for activating the vocabulary, but I have a question. Are there any word games which serve to learn new words? Because I think there are fewer in numbers than those that...
Again, I'm
So, are there any
Please,
word games...
microphone. I don't hear the question.
Oh, sorry. So, are there any board games which you use for introducing new vocabulary, not just revising what they already know?
Yeah, charades. Usually charades. The words that the game where you have to, we know that you have to show the words. Actually, this game is charade. This game is charade because you use things to show. Taboo, I prefer taboo where you have the word, and you have the words that you cannot use. Yeah, they may be good for not maybe introducing new vocabulary, but maybe reviewing and facilitating it. Charades and maybe some drawing games. Yeah, another game we have Pictomania. This is a new game. This is a game by a Czech developer. It's about drawing. Yeah. You have to draw and you have to guess and you have words there. So I would recommend that game for introducing new vocabulary. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask pretty much along the same lines. I was thinking, would you recommend any game to someone, to a teacher that was worried about providing comprehensive input? Like looking for an opportunity to like give sort of like the teacher states a lot, the students understand situation.
Guided. Could you say that?
No, I'll get this. No, I was wondering if you had a teacher that was worried about providing a lot of comprehensible input to the students, can you think of any game that you would recommend? A situation where the teacher was doing maybe a lot of the speaking and the students were like understanding.
So you mean the teacher-centered games?
If anybody means it's like a game where you need to listen a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there are such games as app-driven games. You buy a game, yeah, like this one actually. Words, yeah, and you buy the game and you have to download an app. It's free, and then you start the app and you have to listen to the app. So the app, you have to follow what the app says. This is the thing that I know about listening. Okay, other questions? Okay, if you have any other further questions, you can ask me just in between. I'm always eager to talk about board games. And for the other people, I invite you to play Decrypto. This is a very fresh game. It's one of the top party games. It's a highly associative game where it's about, again, words. It looks nice. It's for 6-8 people. And I invite you to play during the gathering. I enjoy it very much. I think you would also enjoy playing with me. I'm going to explain you the rules and we can play together. Anytime, I'm here. Yeah. Thank you.